James, the Bulldog of Bergen, Braddock. Boxing in the 1920s was a very popular international sport. Many fights during this time were 20 years away from television, so at the events, there were many thousands of people in attendance, men and women. However, in the 1930s, boxing was hit hard by what was known as the Great Depression. Because of the struggling economy, boxers were being offered lower amounts of money, which gave them no passion for boxing. In the 1930s, there was not a heavyweight champion, and the sport was being boycotted for lack of money to output to the boxers. Boxers got paid based upon many variables. For example, how popular the boxer was, who his opponent was, and if the boxer was black or white. Black boxers were given about 20% less money than their white counterpart. During the Great Depression, the winning boxer was rarely given over $200, which he had to split down with his manager, which gave him about $115. The losing boxer was given maybe $5. Only the winning boxers made the big bucks. The moral of the people living in New Jersey was low, and they had nobody to look up to. That's where the Bulldog story begins. James Braddocks was born on June 7, 1905 in New York City to his Irish immigrant parents, Joseph Braddock and Elizabeth O'Toole Braddock, in a small apartment located on West 48th Street, New York City. Braddock was one of 5 kids and he had 2 sisters. In his family, James was just a normal kid playing marbles and wanting to play baseball. He dreamed of becoming a fireman or a train engineer. Surprisingly, Braddock found his love of boxing between the years of 1919 and 1923, while he worked many jobs as a messenger boy for the Western Union, a printer's devil, a teamster, and an errand boy in a silk mill. In 1924 and 25, he worked on his boxing skills to become a boxer. In 1926, he entered his first professional boxing circuit in the light heavyweight division. In only his first year, Braddock was overwhelming his opponents with a big right hand, constantly knocking them out. As he made it to the top of the light heavyweight division, he wanted to move upper class, but he only weighed 180 pounds and he needed to be 220 pounds. However, on July 18, 1929, Braddock was facing Tommy Loughran. Loughran was prepared by knowing that Braddock's weapon was his big right hand. Loughran spent the match dodging these right hooks and over 15 rounds beat Braddock over decision. After not even 2 months after the bout with Loughran, the stock market crashed, and then came the Great Depression. As the banks went under, so many people, including Braddock, lost everything. With almost zero work available, Braddock woke up early every morning to go into the docks, where men with no job could go and find work just for a day. Over 100 men were there, and only 5 to 10 men got in every day. Along with no work, James struggled to win fights so he could support his wife, May Braddock, and his 3 kids, Jay, Howard, and Rosemary. James lost 16 out of 22 fights, and during that time breaking his hand. After his poor performance against Abe Feldman, the boxing committee revoked his license, forcing him to retire. James had to file for government relief to support his family. James had what he called a run of bad luck. But his luck changed when in 1934, due to a last-minute cancellation, James was given the opportunity to fight John Corn Griffin for an undercard fight. To the amazement of everyone, he beat Corn with a 3rd round knockout. Word of Braddock's fight spread, and the boxing committee reinstated him. James was given another chance to fight his opponent. This time was John Henry Lewis, or otherwise known as the Brown Bomber. Jimmy was again favored to get knocked out in 5 rounds. James proved them wrong again by beating John Henry Lewis in 10 rounds. Now, James had the people of Bergen, New Jersey, along with the rest of the nation, in his corner. Art Lasky was next in line to fight James Braddock. This fight was very close and went to decision in 15 rounds. James won and was then considered to be the top heavyweight contender to go up against Max Baer. During an interview with James, his wife, and James's manager Joe Gold, a reporter named Sporty Lewis asked May a question. He said, "How do you feel about your husband fighting a man who has killed 2 men in the ring?" May was stunned, and James answered with, "She's scared for Max Baer's life, not mine." The night before the fight, May was upset and madly begged James not to take this fight. James refused. After James left for the fight the next day, May went to a local church to pray for her husband. She soon found that James was an inspiration for many, as the church was filled with other people praying for James. They all thought James was fighting for them. While Joe Gold was taping up James for the fight, May walked in, and Joe and James were both shocked because they knew May never liked to see James fight. She gave James motivation after she left, and James was about to enter the fight of his life. During the first 2 rounds, Max had showed zero respect for James. It was during the 3rd round that Max's killer mentality came out, and James and the crowd knew it. After a few good punches from Max, James gave him a big right hook, and the crowd went crazy. James would not be bullied and didn't care for Max's killer mentality. After a back-and-forth fight in 15 long and brutal rounds, James beat Max and was the new heavyweight champion of the world. While he was champion, James fought exhibition matches for the next 2 years. On June 22, 1937, Braddock lost his title in an 8-round knockout from Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber. Braddock fought that fight with a medication for arthritis and a muscle relaxant. Although he lost, everyone said it was the best fight James fought. Prior to that fight, Joe Gold got a deal that gave Braddock 10% of the gross with Louis for the next 10 years. From 1937 to 1939, James received $150,000, nearly $2 million in today's currency. After his win against Tommy Farr, James retired from the sport of boxing. After his retirement, James and Joe enlisted into the U.S. Army in 1942, and they became first lieutenants. After James' return, he helped construct the Verrazano Bridge. Later, he managed the docks where he labored during the Great Depression. On November 29, 1974, after 85 fights with 51 victories, James J. Braddock died in his sleep. May continued to live in their house after she died in 1985. Braddock was inducted into the Ring Boxing Hall of Fame in 1964. For a man to try and raise an entire family during the Great Depression was more than difficult. James often had to swallow his pride to support his family. For him to just quit his passion and do hard labor for very little pay stuns me. A man's all-time low is when he needs to ask for money. James Braddocks displayed heart, bravery, and love not only in boxing, but in life and to his family. A truly great man.